Welcome to the Conquerors Podcast. My name is Manish Kata, and with me this week, as with most weeks, I have Jeff Goodnow. How you doing today, Jeff?
Peachy keen.
All right. So one thing we wanted to talk about today was something that happened in the news recently, which was the closure of Oranj, or spelled with a J, which is a wealth management software that's out there. The reason we wanted to bring it up is, number one, it was abrupt. It left a lot of advisors surprised and shocked and having to make a quick decision. So we thought it's important to discuss what happened as much as we could gather and what this means for the future of fintech or advisor tech when something like this happens. So let's start, Jeff, with what is Oranj? What exactly do they do?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is there's a spectrum, but it was what we consider a model marketplace. It's a place that advisors could go and get trade signals from various providers and be able to have the trades essentially there for them to implement. Right, so the savings is time. They don't have to do research. They can just say, "Oh, I like this American funds model. Let me go ahead and grab this and initiate the trades." Now, there's a spectrum, and I think they were on the cool part was I think their software was pretty cool. I think they were on the better end or the higher end of the model marketplaces. Some of them that I've seen. And so they offered a lot of tools with that, but still, it's a model marketplace. They offered signals, and you go from there.
Well, yeah. So traditionally, the model marketplaces are delivered as part of another tool, right? Whether it's Orion Communities or Riskalyze or whatever it may be. I thought Oranj, from a UI perspective, was one of the nicest pieces of software that we've seen, and they have anything from, I think they bought Trade Warrior years ago. So they had a trading rebalancing, client portal, portfolio management. They had the full suite of tools and then also had the model marketplace to go along with it. But yeah, we talked about this earlier where it's like you have your standalone model marketplaces where you just subscribe, and then as you go up the spectrum, you have some that are more full service, like this was.
Yeah, and they seem to have. I would say they had a broad. They had a lot of models. They had a lot of different strategists and a lot of models. So from that perspective as well, it sort of had the feel of a full TAMP. That wasn't their service.
They're not,
right.
Yeah. So they're one of the first that offered the freemium model, and so in our industry, there's not a ton of freemium. Other places, obviously, that what the freemium model is, but in this case, it's listen. An advisor would come to Oranj. They would give you the software for free, all of it, the client portal, the rebalancing, the portfolio administration, and accounting, for free. If you used a handful of managers in their model marketplace. And so, there was an additional cost sometimes for customizations from what I read and what I heard. But for the most part, the software was 100% free, and they would try to make it on the back end. So that was an interesting thing with Oranj that's probably unique from other folks. From reports that about 500 clients using their system, no idea at the AUM or anything that went wrong. And this is important. Like we don't know exactly what happened, right? A lot of this is just speculation. Only the owner of the firm kind of knows where that is. So, all right. So based on what on what was reported and what we talked about, what do you think went wrong? Like what are the first couple of points that we can discuss where do things go wrong for a firm like this?
Well, I think, to me, I think we need to talk about freemium just a little bit more. I mean, that concept is one that, yes, we've seen it in other places, but, not all advisors necessarily know what that means, right? This is something that I'll go back to a former podcast, and we have made the statement that nothing in life is free. It just means it gets paid somewhere else. And so do you have some insight into what your version of freemium is, what you mean by that when you say that?
Yeah, well, we have insight because we tried to get on the model marketplace, and they gave us the paperwork, and we were about to get on and pay the launch fee. And so good timing. It saved us a couple bucks. But from what we can gather, they were charging the manager 6 basis points in the marketplace. And so the thought process from this freemium model is we offer the software for free. If they use these 20 managers, which I assume they're going to push hard because they have to get paid, you get 6 basis points from the manager. And that sounds great on paper, but you have to scale really, really fast. Software development is not cheap. So if your only claim to fame is 6 basis points of a back-end rev share fee, you got to push the scale button real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And that lends itself to one of the issues that I have, which is, I don't think they, for lack of a better phrase, I don't think they had great adoption. I mean, that scale, which is another way to say it, right? Low adoption. It's in my experience at 25 whatever years, advisors, this really speaks to the whole signal selling mantra as much as it does Oranj specifically. But I think there's a little bit of a struggle bus when it comes to advisors who are going to get signals from somebody are really doing so to save themselves a little bit of time on the research. But they still have to have all of the trade capability, even if it's using their that new system. They have to monitor the trades, watch the trades. They have to implement the trades. They have to make that final decision. If they go on vacation, nobody's going to do a trade unless they have some process set up. And so I think what ends up happening is a lot of advisors that are in the position to be able to use something like an Oranj, well, they're already used to doing all their own stuff anyway. So I don't know whether that's really as big of a draw as what some model marketplaces think there is. So I don't know if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think a model marketplace and for the end user is a glorified newsletter.
Pretty much.
You're subscribing to get signals, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's people that use that and need that. But on the back end, if you're a firm trying to scale a model marketplace, you have to have some other avenues to charge, because to your point, we've been on record over and over. If you have the infrastructure in place to trade, bill, do the due diligence, and all the compliance needed, you likely also have the infrastructure to manage your own models. Are you really going to subscribe to models from Invesco and American funds at that point? Probably not. And that's what we've seen, at least, right? The adoption has been very low, and this is what we think the reason is.
Yeah, and I think it also speaks to sort of the marketing of the advisor's office that is going to be a potential candidate for a model marketplace. And what I mean by that is very few advisors are going to start something and say, oh, well, I can get models here in this model marketplace, and therefore I need X number of people to be able to finish the show, right? Instead, it's usually the candidates are the folks that already have been doing it themselves for 15 or 20 years, and they have all those things in place, and they've been doing all the research. And so, again, it goes back to, are they really willing to give that up? And here's one of my concerns. If you are an advisor and you're using a model marketplace, chances are high, at least in my experience, those that I've spoken to, that you're not necessarily telling the clients, oh, I'm putting these American models with this other XYZ model with this Vanguard model in your account, right? Instead, you're simply putting yourself out there as, I'm your financial planner, I'm your advisor, and I'm your money manager. So in this circumstance, this is one of the scary situations when somebody like an Oranj goes out of business. What trades are you going to do now? How fast can you come up with another solution? Because if the new place doesn't have the same thing, right? The client saw it as you, the advisor. It was your brainchild. They don't necessarily know all the stuff that's going on in the background. So, that's just a scary proposition. It's like, look, at what point do you just turn it over to a full TAMP, and that way you can describe and discuss these other strategists that you're putting together for the client. If you want to fire them, fire them. At least it's not on you, the advisor.
Well, we also, the direct experience, full disclosure, our models are on various model marketplaces.
Oh, absolutely.
And we've had conversations with these companies where they have admitted that the adoption has been poor. And our models, the adoption has been very poor. And we've pulled the models from a couple different marketplaces where we're on. So this isn't conjecture. This is firsthand experience of how it's not really working right now in the industry. And to sum up, these last couple minutes, to me, advisors either outsource everything or they do it themselves.
Right.
And a model marketplace is just this middle ground where you're really just like you're a glorified newsletter, and that's not something that can survive in this industry unless you're charging somewhere else. The only model marketplace that will survive are charging hefty fees for other things, and the model marketplace is just one little slice of the pie.
Right.
Do you agree?
Yeah, it becomes that extra value add sort of thing as opposed to the real meal. And that's
so. Let me ask you this. Yeah. Let's what does this mean then? What does this mean for the future of fintech, advisor tech, where a company like this and we talked about abruptly. Let's explain abruptly. They sent out an email about a week and a half ago that said we're closing at the end of the year. So before Thanksgiving, they send an email that says you have 6 weeks in the midst of a pandemic to find an entirely new shop to house all your clients. Listen, I don't know these people, but first and foremost, that's a dick move. You could have at least given them a little bit longer lead time. But anyway, what does this mean for the future of advisor tech?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a concern that we've talked about this with all the merger and acquisition stuff that goes on. Anytime that you look as an advisor, anytime that you look to partner with somebody, a new tech solution, you need to really stop and think about who it is that you're getting into bed with, who it is that you're willing to kind of hang your hat on, whether or not the clients actually know that that's happening or not. Because there's just so much. I mean, think about the robos. That's an easy example. Virtually every robo came out, and you have to scratch your head and say, were they really trying to be a great solution, or were they trying to be something that could be bought by a custodian? Virtually all of them have been bought by custodians, right? Who is it that you're partnering with? And so from that standpoint,
let me interrupt. Not by. They haven't been bought by custodians. They've been bought by asset managers for the most part.
Well, yeah, but in those cases, we've seen financial planning things have been bought by different groups. So, look, it doesn't mean that it's bad though. That's the thing. Sometimes it's a good thing, but the end result is you have to understand: are you trying to partner with somebody, some new tech solution that looks really cool? Is it really there to be a long-term financial solution for you and your business? Or from that other company's perspective, are they trying to create something that might get sold? And that's why you called it a dick move. I mean, I think this is important. This guy didn't sell I don't know why. I mean, maybe there wasn't enough volume. That was in one report. You were in an article talking about this very thing.
Remember the TD Vail Village? They had the Tech Village. And I remember you and I would walk through that and talk to advisors, and they'd be super excited about all these different new companies coming out. I wonder if you go back and look at the Vail Village 5 years ago, how many of those companies are even around, right? To your point, is this tech company, are they created themselves? Are you their test case? Do they just want to sell, get bought? What's the end goal? And sometimes you don't know, right? Sometimes it's a new technology and you have to take a shot. But you probably shouldn't put all your business with something that may not have a future. Or they're so cheap and free that there's a reason behind it, right? You can't operate a business like that. You have to get paid one way or the other. And yes, I wrote an article, a piece of contributed content for wealth management about an all-in-one solution, and I got some kind of anger thrown at me, especially from tech companies who are smaller. I won't name names, but I think some feathers were ruffled because I do think that 10 years from now, 15 years from now, you'll have your handful of folks, and that's it, because the smaller folks just aren't able to put enough money back into the product. I think larger firms that integrate with smaller folks are only doing it to either appease some folks or eventually buy those people out. And And yeah, I think advisors, if you're thinking about the long-term value of your business, you're better off associating with an all-in-one solution and just getting 80% of it than trying to piece together these parts, of which some parts will just go out of business or get purchased. Right?
Yeah, another way to think about this is if you're getting ready to partner with somebody, ask the question: how big do they have to be for that to function? For that to survive, right? So think about this: if you were going to partner with Oranj when they first got started, so Oranj, how many advisors do you need? How many assets do you need for this to be a viable long-term solution, right? I mean, will they give you an answer? I don't know, but sometimes the question is worth seeing how a company responds. It's food for thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. You should. And I remember there was a blog post written about this that you and I discussed where the advisor talked about believing in the future business model of the fintech companies you choose. So if you're going to go out there and choose a Riskalyze and an Orion, do you believe in their path forward? Do they have the wherewithal to grow their business? If not, you may be stuck with a smaller company that just not going to survive.
Or 8 weeks to find a new home.
Correct. So I think this is a wake up call for advisors in this space. Advisors, it's frustrating. We talk to them all the time. They're frustrated with technology and trying to implement it. I mean, for fuck's sake, we're frustrated with it and trying to implement it ourselves. And so, to partner with a firm that can get closed down in 6 weeks, it's I feel terrible for those advisors, but.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we chuckle or we laugh, it's not because we're making fun of anybody. It's just sometimes you got to laugh because it's life's short, right? You got to keep a little humor in the process. It is absolutely frustrating for those involved in something like that. Hell, what was it? 2007? Was it 2007? Curian shut down. 2011? I don't even remember off the top of my head.
I remember that.
Right, and it just boom. That was a several $billion shop. I mean, sometimes these things happen, and you just sort of shake your head, like, what's going on? But anyway, any other conclusions, Manish, from this?
No, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Full disclosure again, we are actively marketing to Oranj users. There's no point in hiding behind that. We feel like we have a solution that can help. Obviously, it's more of a TAMP. So if those advisors, I think there'll be some shakeout. Some people will find another software solution and move on. Some people will say, screw this, I don't have enough time, let me outsource to a TAMP. And we'll see how everyone scatters. It'll be interesting. We ran some Google ads, and I saw some of the other people running that, like Riskalyze and Altruist and Robust Wealth, some custodians in there. So there's clearly some people, putting their best foot forward to compete for the business. So it'll be interesting. We'll check back in maybe in January and February and see what happened to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. Maybe nobody wants to take that step forward. I mean, if you think about it, if they're driving down the middle of the highway with a model marketplace with a TAMP on one side and a DIY on the other, they may all just go right back to where they started, which is doing it themselves. But we'll see. There's a big difference, and we've got another podcast. What was it, season 10, I think? Or no, excuse me, season 3, episode 10. Wow, God, have we been doing it that long? It's painful. No, I'm kidding. Season 3, episode 10 was TAMP versus model marketplace, and we really dive into the differences and so forth. So, you got any recommendation for this week?
I don't. Actually, what do you got?
Well, I tell you what, we saw a movie. Kim and I called actually some family the other night. We were thinking, okay, we want to watch a movie. Help us shortcut it. We got some movie freaks in our family. So the new movie that came out was Knives Out. It's been out for a while. Okay, this isn't anything new. But Daniel Craig, one of my favorite actors, was in it. And, so, okay, I knew exactly what it was. Just we'd never taken time to watch it. It was pretty stinking cool. So if you like Clue, right? Whether it be playing the game Clue or watching Clue the movie, that was a long time ago, you will dig this movie. It's one of those that just makes you think, makes you pay attention, definitely got some twists. So anyway, I think we watched it on Prime, but it's out in a lot of places. So
yeah, well, we're watching. I mean, I'm not going to recommend it because I'm losing interest in it, but the first season was at least good, and we're watching Designated Survivor on Netflix. It's kind of a rip-off of 24. I think that was the name of it. Anyway, it's like I'm losing interest because it's one of those shows where the last 10 minutes they do something really interesting to make you hit next episode. But it's just like moving in a circular fashion now with the plot twist. So
I watched all of those a couple years ago, and I actually enjoyed the thing. It was one of them I was disappointed when they stopped. Right, all these shows. You think about it. All these shows at some point come to an end, and very rarely do they come to an end because they've summed it all up and the issue is done. Usually, it's just they don't come back.
Yeah.
So.
I'm over it. I mean, it's a half-ass recommendation if you want to go watch it. But all right, cool. That's all I have, man.
All right. On that note, we're out. And if anybody wants to reach us, just go to potomacfund.com and click on Contact to Connect.
And subscribe to our YouTube channel. We need some more subscribers.
There you go. Subscribe to YouTube. We've got to do that. Let's. Anyway. All right. Thanks. We're out.